Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In our last video, we were discussing the quality of zuhud, of abstinence from this world. In this video, we're going to discuss a very important quality, which is the quality of tawakkul, of reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is such an important quality that we were reminded of it all the time in Surah Fatiha, where we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. That you alone do we worship and you alone do we seek help. Just as we worship Allah only alone, that we seek help from Allah only alone. And this is the reality of tawakkul. And why do we seek help from Allah only alone? But the reality is only Allah that can benefit and harm us. That all of creation is dependent on Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is self-sufficient. Wallahu al-ghani wa antum al-fuqara. And why would we rely on the creation when they can't benefit or harm us in the least? And the means of developing this quality of tawakkul, reliance on Allah, is first to study, reflect, and know the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we study the names and attributes of Allah, this will allow us to develop that quality of tawakkul. Know that He's Al-Wakil, the disposer of affairs, that He is Ar-Razaq, the one who gives the risk. And when we reflect more on His names, the more our understanding of reliance on Allah will increase. And also, we should reflect on Allah's blessings that He has given us that we just take for granted, like the fact that He allows us to breathe without any effort. He allows our heart to beat without any effort. And there's so many other blessings that He gives all of creation. When we reflect on that, then we will develop that quality of reliance, that even the tiny ant under the rock gets sustenance from Allah. Even the giant whale gets sustenance from Allah. This will help us develop that quality of reliance on Allah. And we should also study the promises that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives in the Quran and that are mentioned in the Hadith. That, it mentions, for example, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. That whoever has taqwa of Allah, He provides him a way out of every situation, and He gives him risk from places he can't expect. So this is a promise of Allah. And when we study these, we will develop the quality of reliance. Also, we should study the lives of the prophets and the righteous, because they exemplified the quality of reliance on Allah. And when we study their lives, this will help develop our own understanding of reliance on Allah. And finally, we should keep company of the righteous, because the righteous will remind us of relying on Allah and turn us away from false understandings of relying on the things of this dunya. So keeping good company is also an important factor in developing tawakkul. And I want to mention one hadith before I conclude this video, a very beautiful hadith, famous hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ told Ibn Abbas when he was a young man, he told Ibn Abbas, I will teach you some words of advice. And what did he tell Ibn Abbas? He said, be mindful of Allah and Allah will protect you. Be mindful of Allah and you will find Him in front of you. And if you ask, then ask Allah alone. If you seek help, then seek help from Allah alone. And if the nations were to gather together to benefit you with anything, do not benefit you except with what Allah had already prescribed for you. And if they were to gather together to harm you with anything, they will not harm you except with what Allah had already prescribed against you. The pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. And this is the reality of tawakkul, understanding that nothing of creation can benefit you except by the will of Allah. And nothing can harm you except by the will of Allah. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to benefit you, nobody can harm you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants some harm to come to you, nobody can protect you. When we understand this, then we'll be able to develop the true quality of tawakkul, inshallah. In our next video, we'll be further expanding on this quality of tawakkul, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.